just FYI that we are recording this. So again, really excited to be here with all of you and with Brian to learn together about how we can all maximize our use of PolicyMap. I wanted to mention just a few things at the top. So first, I believe all, if not most of you, are currently users in PolicyMap. If you're having any issues with your account, issues signing in, if you don't currently have access to PolicyMap through us, please feel free to reach out. I'll drop my email address in the chat here in just a second. So any issues that you're having, please feel free to reach out. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are going to have an evaluation. We're going to share a quick survey at the end of this. We really, really want to know from all of you how we can help maximize our use of PolicyMap and make this this tool as effective as possible for all of us, but also what other data needs you have that we can help meet. So if you could take just a second at the end to make sure that you fill out that survey, I'd really appreciate it. And with that, I will hand it off to Brian. Brian, go for it.
Thanks, Colleen. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to be with you all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and get started with the training. All right, so everybody should be seeing my screen now. And so for this session, we are going to be doing we're going to start with just kind of a brief overview, brief kind of refresher on basic functionality of using PolicyMap. So some of this we covered at a training session that we did at the end of May. So we'll go through that quickly, kind of just start there just to kind of refresh everybody's memory on using some of the basic functionality. So we'll kind of move through that fairly quickly. And then we'll spend time talking about some more advanced features, some of which we talked about in May, but we'll kind of go in depth a little bit more, and some of which may be new. So that's the agenda for today. So let's get started. So in terms of just basic functionality, so the Interact for Health enterprise site, this is a tool, it's web-based, so it's available with any computer with internet access. And the URL for the Interact Health site is interacthealth.policymap.com, and you'll land here at this login screen when you put that into your browser. And so here's Colleen's name as the administrator for any kind of login questions, issues, trouble that you might be having. So I'm going to log into the site, and I'll start by just kind of pointing out a couple of things, a couple of reminders and things like that. So once you log into the site, this will be the default view that you'll see zoomed into kind of the greater Cincinnati area. Up in the top right-hand corner is where you can access our support resources. So that link up there in the top takes you to our support page. And so our support page has lots of tutorials and guides. There is, that are all kind of grouped thematically by the different features and functionality. There's a video gallery with a quick start video. This is always just a really good sort of introductory primer if it is sort of the first time that you're getting oriented to using PolicyMap. But this support page is also searchable. So if you can enter keyword searches. So if you're looking at like how to download data, you can do a keyword search and click on some of these entries, and then there's screenshots and step-by-step instructions for using some of these different features. We also have a what's new section on our support page, and this is just where we keep sort of a running feed of data updates, new data that's been added to the PolicyMap data library. And so this is where we capture all that stuff. And so, just a little over a month ago, one sort of data set that we recently added that might be interesting for the users of the Interact Health site is we added retail-based healthcare. So kind of like minute clinics, Rite Aid, CVS, kind of retail-based healthcare locations from a source called Data Axle. So I'll hop back to the mapping page. And so talk about a couple of just sort of key or kind of core functionality of the enterprise site. So One is going to be this location search. So this is where you can put in a specific address, a city, a county, a zip code, and zoom to that location on the map. So for example, if we were to put in a zip code in Northern Kentucky, select that option, it'll zoom us into 41005 zip code area, show you the boundary for that zip code, and all the base map details start to populate. More details starts to fill in as you zoom in closer on the map. The set location bar also does have a drop down which allows you to use some built-in boundaries. So if you had like a particular census tract ID, or you're looking at like a congressional district or state legislative districts, these are just kind of built in, so you could go in and look at Ohio, upper house, lower house, state Senate District 5, and once you select one of those options, then it just zooms you to that location, shows you that boundary again. And we'll come back to some of these buttons a little bit later, but the location search allows you to basically just kind of navigate to an area and select a location on the map. So then all of the data that's part of the PolicyMap data library is organized into these data menus above the map. So they're all organized thematically rather than by source to make it easy to find what you're looking for. So as you start to open these, click on one, and there's these cascading menus which get kind of drill down into more and more specific kind of indicators and variables. And so then as you've kind of navigated through and selected one of these options, it'll load that onto the map. So yeah, so they're all organized into these thematic menus from demographics kind of over to federal guidelines. We also did recently add or kind of build out this social drivers of health data menu, which is specific to the Interact for Health enterprise site. And so when you open this, this is basically kind of like a curated menu, captures a selection of PolicyMap indicators and data points that are organized into this kind of social drivers of health or social determinants of health kind of menu. So there's indicators related to life expectancy and mortality indicators. Food and nutrition is going to have like food access indicators, food insecurity, education, educational attainment, school enrollment. Financial stability has like household income and poverty indicators. And so this is all just kind of organized just to kind of make it pull sort of a selection of data layers and data points from PolicyMap and present it in a way that's sort of most relevant to organizations doing work in like social or doing work related to social determinants of health or social drivers of health, health equity, and community health work. So it kind of aligns with some other frameworks that are out there, like county health rankings, Healthy People, in terms of kind of how the data is packaged and presented. So, but that's a recent addition and something that will hopefully be really useful for the Interact for Health site users. The other way to find data through the PolicyMap tool is going to be using this data search. So just to the left of the location search, where you search for a specific address or city or county or zip code, is a data search. So you can also just do keyword searches to find a particular data point or data layer. So if you were to put in, for example, alcohol as a keyword, you can see there's drug and alcohol treatment facilities as a point location. If you scroll down, you'll see, there's indicators related to heavy drinking, binge drinking. And so you can select, one of those search results, and then it just loads that onto the map. So if you want to remove a data layer data point over in the legends for those here in the map window, you'll see there's an X, and that can just take it right off. There's also a reset map button in the bottom right-hand corner, and that just allows you to kind of refresh to the default view. So we're gonna go through really quickly, just making a map, talking about interacting with data layers and data points, and we'll kind of use kind of like an environmental justice example or lens for this one. So first I'll load a data layer. I'm gonna go under social drivers of health, community social context, and the populations. we'll put on population by race, ethnicity, population of color. So this is going to be estimated percent of population that is people of color or non-white between 2017 and 2021. So anytime you have a data layer that you've selected and that is displayed on the map, over here in the legend, you'll see a description or kind of just a brief kind of label for that indicator. If you click on the little eye bubble, you can see more of a description, and then you can see a link to our data dictionary here, which is also accessible just for this source hyperlink over in the legend. So all of our indicators in PolicyMap are going to have this kind of documentation about the data sources. So when you select the link to the data dictionary, it'll navigate to the particular source that indicator comes from. So this one comes from the census ACS, and then our data dictionary has entries on what years are available, what geographies it's available for, the last time it was updated, additional detail on just kind of how we work with that data or process that data. And yeah, this is the type of detail that you'll see for the data sources that are available in PolicyMap. And so just as a reminder, you can get to that by either clicking on the data dictionary link here from this more detailed description or by clicking on that source hyperlink. So with a data layer, it's going to be this sort of thematic shading on the map based on a variable that you're looking at. And so, the darker purple areas are going to be where it's a higher percentage people of color, lighter purple areas where it's a lower percentage people of color. And then over here in the legend, that's all, those darker purple, lighter purple all correspond to these ranges. So the darkest purple areas are going to be where it's greater than 71.5% roughly, and the lighter purple areas where it's a little less than 11%. So all that corresponds here with what you'll see represented in the legend. There's lots of different options and toggles and drop downs and things like that over in the legend when you're looking at a data layer, which can kind of help you to kind of dig in a little bit to change what you're looking at on the map dynamically. So for example, if you want to keep the same indicator but look at a previous time frame, you can select the year drop down and look at same indicator but for a previous time period. There's also a variable drop down where you can change from the default estimated percent to something like a count or a percent change variable. And then you can also change the color ramp. So if you want to change, use one of our built-in alternative color ramps, or you can also, create your own color range or, color ramp using that link to create a custom color range. And then you can set the number of ranges and choose from these different color options to create your own color scheme. You can also edit these cut points or these ranges from what the default is. So the default is just kind of, breaking it up into, 5 ranges based on just sort of the distributed values across the country. But you can also edit these and kind of set more specific ranges. Clicking this ranges drop down, you can change the number of ranges or change these cut points using either the sliders here or just typing in new values. And that'll just dynamically change in the legend and what you're seeing on the map. Another, interesting kind of somewhat recent addition is the ability to set your, ranges based on just the map extent. So changing it from the default of sort of considering all, the census tracts in the country to just looking at the census tracts within your current map extent area. And that just adds like some local context in anytime you're looking at a data layer. So you can just select a different radio button here to go from the sort of the default sort of national view to the current map extent view. Again, just sort of add some of that local context when you're looking at a data layer. So you can also interact with these ranges by clicking on them in the legend to, just see those areas that are in like the top range. So if you wanted to just see the areas where this, estimated percent people of color is greater than 48%, or the top two ranges, you can select multiple options over there in the legend, and then it kind of just hides everything else outside of that selection. And you can always just remove those by clicking on those X's in the legend. So then if you wanted to see a little bit more, so obviously as you move your mouse around, you'll see that there is a hover that's letting you know, estimated percent people of color for, in this case, the census tracts that I'm hovering over. So if you want to see more information about a specific location, you can click on an area on the map, and then you'll see, a very simple trend chart just showing, how that estimated percent people of color has changed for the three time periods for which that data is available. And if you click on this trends button, it'll open up the sidebar here on the right-hand side where you can then do kind of small area to large area comparisons. So see how the census tract that you clicked on compares to the city, to the county, to the state. And you can also toggle from kind of these more hierarchical boundaries to neighboring boundaries to see how it compares to neighboring census tracts. And in both of those cases, you can also click this button at the top to kind of expand this out to a more complete trend chart view and add in some of those contextual boundaries. And these are just interactive charts as you hover over them, and you can export these as images as well. So that's just a nice feature, again, to be able to see sort of how more kind of local areas or smaller areas compared to some of the larger contextual geographies. So next I'll add on a point data set. So under social drivers of health, environmental hazards, I'm going to put on locations of brownfields. So when you have point data, like these locations of brownfields on the map, these will appear as actual, pins or, points or dots. And as you hover over them, you can see just a quick label for it. If you click on a particular point, you can see more attributes. These are, expandable and collapsible menus, and the attributes that you'll see will just depend on the point data set that you're looking at, but you can see, detail on the address, basically like the grant recipient or entity that, was assessing this property as a brownfields, whether or not, cleanup was required, whether the assessment was completed, media affected. So there's just different details for each of those brownfield locations. So over in the point legend, you can change the point icon, shape, size, and color. So if you wanted to use upside down triangles, for example, change the color to something different, you can do that. The source will be listed here. This would link to our data dictionary for that particular point data set. And then most of the point data in PolicyMap, you also have the ability to set up filters or to use filters on. So you click on this little filters button and it will expand out a menu where you can explore different filter groupings. So for example, if you wanted to just see those points where cleanup or brownfield locations where cleanup was required, you can just check that box, and then you're seeing a subset of the points. In a lot of cases, you also have this kind of option to color code all, so keep all the points on the map, but color code them based on that particular filter grouping, and then you'll see it represented here in the legend, kind of what each point color represents. So I'm going to go back to my orange. It's a little easier to see. So that's a little bit about interacting with data layers, interacting with data points in PolicyMap. And so I'm going to go back to my location search, and I'm just going to select Hamilton County. and then kind of now return to some of these buttons. So now that we have some data on the map, some data layers and data points, when you navigate to a location or set a location, in this case, Hamilton County, or if you were to use like a state district or congressional district or a zip code area, you can use this clip button to clip the map area to just show data that falls within your selected location. You can click on the X on that box just to hide that, but then it will basically kind of mask everything outside of your selected location. You can also click on this table button to open that sidebar back up and then see a table for all of the census tracts that fall within Hamilton County and the estimated percent of population of color that is in each of those census tracts. You can toggle up here in the top of the sidebar to switch from the data layer to the data point if you wanted to see a list of the brownfield locations within Hamilton County. And then, both of these, all of the, and the data is going to be downloadable too. So you can get to the download within the sidebar here by clicking on this download tab, or you can also access that by just clicking on the download button from this selected location. And when you go to the download, you can either download the data layer, the data points, or the points with the layer data attached. So the example there would be like download the locations of brownfields, and for each of those brownfield locations, show the estimated percent of population that's people of color based on the census tract in which that brownfield site is located. So you can choose to either have this emailed to you or just download directly through your browser, and then you just click on the download data button. And if you download it through your browser, you'll see a notification up here in the top right-hand corner when that generates. So this is where those kind of downloads and exports will appear up here in the top right.
Hey, Brian.
Yep.
Sorry, real quickly, it looks like there's a question in the chat about why brownfields show up more than once.
Yeah, so it's probably because I think that certain sites, certain brownfield sites can have like multiple assessments, multiple phases of assessment and stuff like that. I think it's just something that's somewhat inherent within just sort of the brownfields program. Sometimes there's also kind of like the same, because I think when I clicked on the table, it just showed up here as like, there's multiple, it kind of look like duplicates. But if you click on each one of these, it's like sometimes they're clustered sites, or sometimes there's sort of like multiple assessments associated with the same site location. So that was a little bit about, setting your location, or, using the clip, the table, the download, and then so besides, downloading data out of PolicyMap, the other, outputs that you can produce, you can export the map as an image. So over on the bottom right is where you'll find the print button. And so you click on the print button, a little print preview will show up. And you can drag the map around to center things up. You can move these legends. You can change it from, landscape to portrait, the format from PDF to PNG. You can include different, you can decide whether to include legends. You can edit the title, the actual file name. So there's just lots of different configurations and options for how you want to, customize your print export. And then once you click on the export button, this is something that will also just pop up here in the top right-hand corner once it's available. You can also save a map view. So this right below the print button is the save icon. And so this is where you can save this to your workspace. So it'll save it to kind of your current zoom level, whatever data you have on the map, anything, any other kind of, just customizations you might have, any filters you might have on. all that'll be saved within that current map view. So you can customize, what you want the name to be, but once you click on save, this will appear in your saved work folder, which is just below that save icon. So the saved work is where you can come back and just click on this link and it'll just reload that map view that you had saved. And within your saved work is where you'll also find like any custom regions you create, any data that you've uploaded. You can also create little project folders and then kind of drag like a couple of maps into it, a custom region into it, and just kind of organize some of your work that way as well within PolicyMap. And then you can also share maps. So below the saved work folder is the share icon. And so when you click on that share icon, you can share links to interactive maps. And so you can share with, depending on what data you have on the map, if you just have, public data like a census indicator, and in this case, EPA brownfields, then you can create just a publicly shareable link, which will, when you click on this create link button, you'll see a little short link appear there. And then that'll be an interactive map that you can share with, even users who don't have access to the Interact for Health PolicyMap site. It'll just kind of open it up as just like a basic instance of PolicyMap. It'll have that data layer and data point on the map, and it'll be interactive. If you have any kind of data that's sort of like proprietary or non-public data, then you won't be able to share public links, but you'll be able to share with other users of the Interact for Health enterprise site. And that's kind of what that second option is. You can also email, so you can either get just the link, or you can, actually send an email. And there is some validation that happens on the back end as far as identifying whether or not it's a user who has access to the enterprise site. There's also the ability to create embeddable maps. If you have like a blog or something, you want to put a little interactive map embedded on that page. And then there is some social media sharing links too. So I'm going to reset my map. And in terms of some of the advanced functionality, the first thing I was going to talk about is using the multi-layer maps tool. So the multi-layer maps tool is available. Everything we've been looking at so far has been in sort of the more single layer view. So one layer at a time, you can put like multiple data points on top. But if you wanted to put multiple data layers on and kind of see some relationship between those data layers, that's what the multi-layer map tool is for. So you can toggle from single layer to multi-layer up here in the top right of the map window. So the example that I'm going to use is going to be looking at starting with an indicator related to disconnected youth, which is a census, ACS derived indicator that we recently added to PolicyMap. But I think it's just a very interesting indicator. And so we're going to look at an example, kind of looking at disconnected youth as one indicator, and then kind of looking at that in relation to some other indicators, kind of exploring sort of the geographic relationship. So, but before we jump into multi-layer, I just wanted to add this disconnected youth indicator onto the map, just to kind of show quickly just sort of what it looks like, and talk a little bit about the indicator itself. So over here in the description, you'll see that this is the percent of people 16 to 19 years old who were not enrolled in school and were unemployed or not in the labor force. And so there's a little bit more of a description here, but the term that's commonly used for this population is disconnected youth. And so obviously it's a pretty big indicator for like youth mental health. And this is an indicator that is also used in county health rankings. And it's, a very like vulnerable population. So So that's the first layer that we'll start with. So we have that one on the map. And so now when we toggle from single layer to multi-layer, that one will just carry through. And so I'm going to, so basically when you have the multi-layer map, when you're in multi-layer map mode, you have to set criteria on your data layers in order for it to kind of drill down or kind of filter down to areas that meet specific criteria. So in the case of, this disconnected youth indicator, I'll start with changing this to be, areas where, the percent of 16 to 19-year-olds who are disconnected youth is greater than 25%. You can also use this as just a slider if you want. So you can slide this up and down just to change sort of the top and bottom kind of values for kind of how it's filtering that layer. So yeah, so we'll start with census tracts where, the percent disconnected youth is 25% or more. And so then the areas that are still shaded on the map are going to be those areas that meet that first criteria. So then now I'm going to put on some other data layers just to kind of explore sort of the relationship with some other indicators. So for example, under social drivers of health, look at like a financial stability indicator like poverty. So now I've added poverty as a second data layer, and it's going to be represented kind of with this diagonal line fill, but everything is again shaded in because I need to change the criteria on that poverty layer to see areas that just meet the specific criteria that I've set. So I'll start to use the slider here to see areas that are generally higher poverty. And so maybe we'll say like where it's greater than 33%, so like more than a third. And so now we can kind of see, the relationship. I'll zoom in a little bit, but so we can see, census tracts that have, high, percentage disconnected youth and a high percentage of people living in poverty. So you can see, some areas of overlap. So if I click on one of these areas that has the blue fill and the diagonal line fill, I can see that it meets both of the criteria of the disconnected youth indicator and the poverty indicator. There's obviously going to be some areas where there's not that overlap. So this is one where it's relatively low poverty, but higher, percent disconnected youth. And then if you click on one of these areas that's not filled in at all, you'll see that it doesn't meet, either of the criteria that you set in those two layers that you've added. So then you could also, add additional data layers. You can add up to 5 data layers. So for example, maybe you want to look at, a different indicator like social context, and we'll look at families with a single parent. And similarly, we can, drag our slider here to see areas with a relatively high percentage of, single parent families. And so this one is going to have the opposite diagonal line fill. And so you can see where there's, overlap with the poverty indicator. You can see where there's overlap across all 3 of these indicators. You can also use the little eyeball icon over here in the multi-layer legend to temporarily kind of turn off one. So if you maybe just want to look at disconnected youth relative to single parent families, you could turn off that poverty layer temporarily just by clicking on the eyeball. And then you can kind of see just that geographic relationship across disconnected youth and single parent families. And so, like I said, you can add up to 5 data layers. You can change your criteria. And so it's just kind of how you can do like a very kind of, basic geographic kind of analysis of, the relationship across some of the different data layers. So we've been using this OR kind of view, or this OR query, which just shows areas of overlap or non-overlap. You can also toggle to intersecting, and that's going to be more of like a true filtering. So saying, it only will show those areas that meet all the criteria that you set. So obviously it's going to be a much more kind of narrowed selection of areas that meet, all three of the data layer criteria that we have set here. But so that's kind of the two different views that you can set within multi-layers, kind of the and, which is more of a intersection or true filtering, or using the or query, which is looking at overlap and sort of this relationship.
Brian, it looks like there are a few questions in the chat for this section as well.
Yep,
Uh,
so
Go ahead.
I saw there was a question about does the clipped area, when you switch to multi-layer, does your clipped area get removed? And it does. So there is not, so the clip is not available in the multi-layer map view. So if I were to go back to Hamilton County, you'll see that there's not the clip button, and the clip button's not available in the bottom right either. So yeah, so right now the clip is just on the single layer map view. So multi-layer, it will kind of show areas, kind of all areas on the map. And so it's the only real way to kind of trim that, or to just focus on that is like when you generate a print or something like that, just sort of centering to the area that you're most interested in. You can put like boundaries, overlaid on top, so you could keep like the Hamilton County boundary on top of your multi-layer map, but it just doesn't clip the area outside of your selected location. And then the other question was about possible to filter out unwanted regions. So only show Hamilton County neighborhoods. I'm not sure that I totally understand the question, but I primarily in terms of filtering, or kind of just seeing selected areas. I think it's really just going to be the clip. I mean, you can use this selected location. If I go back to the single layer map view, you can use that selected location, so to visually clip the map, and then also to set that as kind of the bounding geography in which to download data or export data, or see points or census tracts that fall within that selected location. So, but yeah, I'm not sure if I'm fully answering that question or not. So I'll move on to the data uploader. So talked about multi-layer maps. I'd say kind of the other piece of advanced functionality that, based on some feedback from the Interact Health users that seemed to be of interest, is the data uploader. So the ability to upload your own data into PolicyMap. And so there is a self-service data loader, which allows users to upload a spreadsheet of addresses to display as points on the map. And so the data uploader is going to be available from this data loader button in the top right corner. So I'm going to pull up just a sample data set just to show kind of this is just really kind of dummy data, just for the purposes of kind of demonstration. And so this is obviously really simple. There are a couple of fields that you will have to have included in your data set in order for the built-in geocoder to be able to actually plot points on the map for those addresses. So those are going to be your street address, city, state, and zip code. As long as you have those, you should be pretty set. You can have other fields included in your data. So you can have up to 50 columns in your data set roughly, and you can upload up to 10,000 rows per batch within the data loader, and you can upload as many batches as you want. It's just kind of a per batch limit that 10,000 rows is. So that's just a really simple example data set. And so I saw that there was somebody who actually had in the feedback form that Colleen, or the feedback results that Colleen had said, somebody was looking at uploading SOAR backups, which sounded really like interesting data. So I'll just use that. Again, this is not SOAR backup data in any way. It's just sort of dummy data, but just for the purposes of kind of demonstration. So you can give it a name. There are some links here as well for just kind of tips for setting up your spreadsheet and a sample to kind of start from if you just kind of need something to start from. You can set viewing permissions for yourself only, select individuals where you just put in an email address, or you can also share data uploaded into the enterprise site with all site licensed users. And then you can choose your shape, size, color, icon for your custom uploaded data. So this next screen will show you, it's gonna, the data loader will basically kind of review your fields and try and find the address, city, state, and zip code. As long as they're labeled pretty kind of typically or pretty standardly, it should do a pretty good job of finding that. Sometimes if like your address field is labeled something a little bit more obscure, then you might just have to tell it, that that's the address field. But you can also, if you have latitude, longitude coordinates, you can also upload with latitude, longitude coordinates as well. And then it'll just identify any other remaining columns. But once it's identified your address fields, that's really kind of what the data loader needs to be able to geocode and identify point locations for those addresses. So I'm going to click on the geocode spreadsheet button, and the next page just shows you results of the geocoding. So in this case, shows you just a summary of how many of the points were successfully geocoded. You can sort these, use these column headers to sort the results. So the little green check means that it successfully, identified a latitude, longitude coordinate to drop a point for that address. You can sort this to see the non-matches, which will be those red X's, which means that, it didn't identify an actual match for that address. And then you can make edits on the fly. So if you click on the little pencil icon for a particular address, then you can, try and, this one was missing a street number. If you put in a street number and then click on done, you'll see that now it's updated to, it's now geocoded. It kind of just re-geocodes automatically after you make any of those edits. So you can review this list, and then from here you can, cancel and start over. You can delete and re-import. You can just save. You can save and continue. There's also an option to save and download. We do have some users who just basically use the data loader to be a geocoder just to get latitude, longitude coordinates for other applications. So that's also an option. But once you click on save and continue, this will move to a quick preview of your points on the map. So it'll show you a quick preview of those address points that were included in your data set. And then from here, you can view this data on the map, clicking on this button. And so now I'll see my, data loader data displayed as points on the map. So, if this were SOAR backups, then maybe we might want to look at this alongside of a relevant indicator like, age of home, and then look at, median year housing unit was built to see, if these are, if our sewer backups are located, primarily in areas with older housing stock or, that kind of thing. And that's kind of the type of like simple mapping that you can do once you've added your data into the site using that data loader. So if you ever need to come back to that data set, you can go back to the data loader itself and click on this second tab to access and edit any data sets that you've previously uploaded. You can also access those data sets under this social drivers of health tab on the far right-hand side is where any of those kind of data loader data sets will be maintained. And you can click on, if you're the author of that data set, then you can click on this little pencil icon to make edits, change the permissions, change the actual, add more data, re-upload additional data, that kind of stuff. So there was a question in the comments about are site license users all licenses via Interact or all PolicyMap license users? And it's just Interact for Health enterprise site users that you would be, when you saw like in the data loader that sharing permission to be able to make this available to all site license users, or that's going to be just those who have access to this enterprise site for Interact for Health. So yeah, so you don't need to be concerned about data that you upload using the data loader being available to like other PolicyMap subscribers or users. So then another question just came in just about, can you create calculated layers from the point data? So kind of like I like to say, layerizing your points or kind of doing roll up aggregations. So there's not the ability to do that at this point. You can obviously, like once you've loaded up your data loader data set and you want to see like a simple count of like how many of my sewer backups are in Hamilton County or are in this zip code area, you can use the selected location so that you might put in and this table to see a list of points. So, right, so you could see like there's 249 points in Hamilton County. You could download just like we have a lot of folks who do that. They might use the data loader to upload points and then sort of use a selected location to just download like just those ones that are in their target area or their, a particular zip code or county or state or whatever they're working. So there's that ability, but it's kind of more one-off. There's not the ability to, have data loader data that you've uploaded kind of be represented as sort of aggregated, aggregated to a standard geography. So definitely something that we're interested in pursuing in the future. One note just on the data loader is that right now there's not the ability to set your own filters on your data loader points, but that's actually functionality that'll be coming probably by the end of this year. And you are only able to upload points at this point. Yeah, so there's not the ability to upload layers, like if you had, like eviction rates by zip code or something like that within your city. That data you're not able to upload via the self-service data loader. So right now the self-service data loader is just for address level data displaying as points. So the last thing I just wanted to show, pretty quickly in just a couple of minutes is custom regions. So custom regions allow you to kind of create like your own study area, your own kind of like custom sort of selected geography. And then once you've created a custom region, you can use it sort of similar to how we were using the Hamilton County selected location to like clip your map to see data that falls within that selected location. So I'm just gonna clear my map really quick. So if you want to create a custom region, so just to the right of the location search is the custom region button. So here you'll be able to see any custom regions that you've previously created or that others have created and sort of shared with all site license users. If you click on the create region, then you'll see the three options. So you can create a radius, kind of like circular region around a point or a address. You can create a drawn region, just connecting dots on the map, or you can create an assembled custom region, which would be like if had a set of zip code areas that were most interesting to the work you were doing, or maybe you're working with certain, state legislative districts and you want to assemble them into a custom region area, then you could use that assembled custom region option. So you choose the boundary type, and then you just start clicking on the map to add additional boundaries to your custom region. It'll show that list there. You can clear all or remove them by clicking on the X, and then if you click on continue, it will show you, here's that assembled custom region. You can give this a name and description if you want. You can keep this private or share it with other site license users. And then you can save this, edit the shape, and even after you've saved it and it's available in your custom region menu, you can always come back and edit this, edit the shape, edit the name, the color, the visualization of it. And you can also, this is the sharing permission, so you can also share these, kind of a copy of these with other site license users as well, or other individuals by clicking on that little copy button. So once you've created your custom region, like I said, it has similar functionality to, some of the built-in boundaries. So if you wanted to, if we put on an indicator on the map, so we could put on something like subsidized households by census tract. And we put on our sewer backups, point data. So once you have your custom region on the map, you can clip to just show data within your custom region that you created. You can use the table to see, census tracts that fall within your custom region, or the points that fall within your custom region. You can also use these to download data. And then the other really useful thing is when you've created a custom regions, you can use one of these, one of our just sort of standard reports, which will just do some kind of like roll up aggregations for, the areas that fall within your custom region. And so there's these three options for the custom regions. You can generate a community profile, rental housing, or a mortgage report. I think the community profile is kind of the most useful because it has just a bunch of demographic summaries for your custom region area. So it'll start to compile this report. The top just shows you a little bit about sort of the location, the areas that it touches, other districts like school districts and congressional districts, state districts that are that intersect with that custom region area. And then here's where some of the indicators are. And so anywhere where you see it just say area, it's going to be representing kind of some aggregated values for that custom region that we created. So you can see population trends for your custom region area relative to the county and the state, race and ethnicity breakdown, age, households by income bracket for your assembled custom region relative to the counties and state. So these are really useful for just again, like just gathering kind of a basic demographic kind of community characteristic snapshot for a non-standard kind of geography, like a custom region. And we know that a lot of folks use these for grant applications and just kind of overall just sort of needs assessments. And so yeah, so that's definitely a really useful feature when using the custom regions. So you can obviously generate these community profile reports for standard geographies too, like a county or a a zip code area or a individual census tract. But I think the real a lot of the utility comes in when generating these for custom region areas. So I think that pretty much covers, you know, the content for the webinar, but I am happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I think we're all up to date on kind of questions that were in the comments, but if anybody has any additional questions, we can drop them into the comment section of the Zoom.
Well, this is Colleen. Just while people are thinking of questions, or if we don't have any questions, oh, I see some more that or one more at least that just went in. I just wanted to thank everyone for being here today and for learning with us, and just a reminder to take that evaluation at the end. I'll send a follow-up email with it as well. But it looks like we did get one question in the chat.
Yeah, so what's the process for PolicyMap adding new data layers? So yeah, if there is data that I think you've identified, you're aware of that seems like it could be helpful to add to PolicyMap, I think we're definitely always interested in that feedback. So you can either send it, you know, to myself or Colleen if there is data that you think would be interesting to add to PolicyMap. There's also a feedback button just within the actual application itself where you can supply that kind of feedback. But yeah, we have like a bit of a internal process for kind of just like vetting and evaluating data, and then just kind of you know, if it does seem like it's a good data set to add to PolicyMap, basically just kind of getting it into the prioritization queue. And so there's always a pretty constant, I'd say, just kind of balance that we have to strike between, you know, making sure that we're keeping existing data in the platform up to date and adding new data, which we know that there's probably infinite number of data sets, especially these days out there, that could be really useful in PolicyMap. Yeah, just as folks are signing off, you know, definitely just wanted to echo Colleen's appreciation. So thank you everybody for taking the time to join, and I hope that it's been a helpful session, and that yeah, that it helps folks who have kind of maybe spent a little bit of time just to kind of see some more of the capabilities of the tool.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm gonna go ahead and end the session now. Thanks everyone. Have a good afternoon.